don't know what that was. That's our own Siri for our Zoom. But
Yes, that was weird.
this is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. All the way from the other side of the pond, I'm joined by Dan Rafael. Major news last night, Dan. How's it gone down amongst the American boxing fans? I'm talking about, obviously, Wilder winning his arbitration case.
Well, I think the way it goes down, Umar, is just frankly the fans who are the fans of Wilder are happy because they believe that he should have gotten the third shot and that Fury shouldn't have tried to go elsewhere before he honored the contractual obligation that he had to Wilder. Others obviously are upset because they would like to see the undisputed fight between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. So I can understand the folks who are upset on both sides, who are happy on both sides. Obviously, all due respect to Wilder, I mean, you want to see the undisputed fight, but by the same token, I understand where Wilder is coming from also. On the one hand, he's the one that gave Tyson Fury the opportunity to fight him the first time. When Tyson Fury was at his lowest point, they fought a heck of a fight. It turned out to be a draw. When they did the rematch, that contract contained rematch language. You don't know exactly what it said. I don't know exactly what it said, but clearly there was language that was very specific about there being an immediate third fight if the loser opted to have it. And that's what happened. Well, Deontay lost the fight. He exercised that clause immediately, within a couple of days after the first bout or after the rematch bout. And, the Fury camp contended that the time frame by which it had to take place had expired. But you and I both know that they tried to make the fight on various dates. I believe it was July, August, and then into the fall, September, October. There was a pandemic. There still is a pandemic. And, everybody understood that when you have a boxing match that generates, upwards of $20 million in ticket sales, that doesn't automatically get replaced. So it was very difficult for them to put it together at the same level of financial outcome that they did when they did the fight that was the rematch. So, it got delayed, and then Fury decided to go his own way and try to do the deal with Eddie Hearn. I kind of feel bad for the Matchroom side, Eddie Hearn and Joshua and his team, because as Eddie says, they were assured that this arbitration was not going to be a big deal. I think that Top Rank and their side believed that. I think they thought even if they lost, that the worst case scenario would be that there would be some kind of monetary damage assessed and that they might have to pay some money to Wilder, but that that they wouldn't be able to enjoin the fight, which is what has happened. Now, the arbitrator is a retired judge named Daniel Weinstein. I've never met him. I've never interviewed him. I don't know him, but I respect him because he's been doing this for a long time. This is not his first rodeo in a boxing case. Now, sometimes you get these boxing cases, they go to an actual court, the Superior Court of California, the Southern District of New York, a federal court, and you get a judge who's very smart about the law and the statutes and knows that kind of thing, as they should, but they're not well versed in boxing and the sort of the ways of the business. Daniel Weinstein, in his job as an arbitrator, has worked on several cases involving boxing events. For those who don't remember, he was the person that was in the middle of trying to have Golden Boy Promotions and Top Rank reach a settlement when they were having the terrible, what we all called the Cold War, over Manny Pacquiao's contract. Remember, Pacquiao had signed with both companies, but this is going back probably close to 10 years ago or more. And there was a terrible situation with that. Well, Weinstein was the one that was in the middle that was able to get everybody to the point where they were able to make a global settlement. And that was just one case. He's worked on other cases also. So my view is Daniel Weinstein found in Deontay Wilder's favor. I'm not going to doubt him. There's obviously a reason in that contract why he found in his favor. And, as I wrote yesterday, one of the blocks of his decision-making process was using the case from, almost 20 years ago, really, I guess 20 years ago this year, when Hasim Rahman had knocked out Lennox Lewis to win the heavyweight title. Lennox Lewis had invoked his contractual right to an immediate rematch. They had about 150 days to put the rematch on. And for those who remember, and I remember covering this at the time when I was still at the time working for USA Today, Rahman wanted to go around that. He didn't want to give him the immediate rematch. He figured I can get a much bigger fight. They were trying to make a fight with Mike Tyson. And they took him to court. And Lennox Lewis, this was not an arbitration. This was in federal court. Lennox and others on his team testified that at his age, 35 at that time, that, you know, his skills were on the decline and that it was imperative that he get the rematch as soon as possible, as promised in the contract. The judge sided with Lennox. They ordered the rematch. But what they did was they told Rockman, you have to either give Lennox the immediate rematch or you have to sit for 18 months, which is really not that much of a choice. If you're Hasim Rockman, what are you going to do? You win the heavyweight championship, you're going to sit on your butt for 18 months and not fight, not make any money. And obviously, with that length of time out of the ring, without injuries or any other reasons, you're going to probably get stripped of the title belts that he held onto. So we gave him the rematch, and of course, we know what happened. Lennox Lewis drilled him in the rematch and regained the titles. But Judge Weinstein read that case, and in his ruling, cited that case as one of the reasons why he sided with Deontay Wilder in this arbitration. And so now, you know, to make a long story short, there's some decisions that have to be made. Deontay Wilder is either going to get the next fight against Tyson Fury, or he'll make a deal to step aside. You know, it still remains to be seen what's going to 100% happen in that case. And if that does happen, he steps aside, they'll fight. If he doesn't, it looks like we'll see part 3 this summer. And then Anthony Joshua, probably on his way to a mandatory against Alexander Usyk.
Yeah, so we've learned in the last few hours that Malik Scott, who is now Deontay Wilder's head trainer, has put an Instagram story up saying, you know, there's going to be no figure that moves Deontay away from this fight. Money isn't the motive here for Deontay. And also Bob Arum, obviously Tyson's US promoter, has come out and said, we're not interested really in paying Deontay to step aside. So we are looking at the trilogy fight. Would you say that's accurate, Dan?
I would say that's probable. I mean, I know that's what they say, but I've been around long enough to know that just because they say they don't want the money, or that Bob says, I don't want to pay the money, you know, that could be the beginning of a negotiation. So, you know, I tend to agree with what they say. I think that Wilder wants to fight more than money. And I don't think Bob is in the or Fury for that matter, in the mood to go try to negotiate some gigantic step aside money for Deontay Wilder. They kind of figured, look, you know, Fury blew him out in the last fight. A lot of people thought he won the first fight. Let's just do this, get it out of the way, and hope that, you know, if Fury fights, I mean, if AJ fights and, you know, that he wins, and that everybody's still standing come, you know, around whatever, November, December, and they can, you know, just go back to the same deal that they currently have, and put the undisputed fight on. You know, there won't be any mandatory problems at that point because the WBO will be satisfied, so that shouldn't be an issue. While I tend to agree with what the sides have said, that Malik's saying on behalf of Deontay that there's no figure big enough to get him to step aside, and Arum saying he doesn't want to do a deal where he's going to have to, or Tyson or anybody's going to have to pay him to step aside. I think that's probable, but I think we'd all be foolish if we said it was 100% certain, because until they have some kind of signed agreement that they're going to do the fight, you know, as we've learned, until it's done, it ain't done.
And if the step aside deal does happen, the unlikely event that it does happen, considering the reports about Tyson's purse for the fight with Joshua in Saudi Arabia, I mean, Deontay's not going to be demanding small change. He's going to be demanding a ridiculous amount.
I'm sure. I mean, I'm not involved in their negotiation, but you would think that if Deontay Wilder looks at the situation and sees that just from the site deal alone, Joshua and Fury would be splitting $150 million. And that's before you count a sponsorship dollar, an American pay-per-view dollar, a British pay-per-view dollar, the dollars from the remainder of the international broadcast rights, you know, a t-shirt, whatever. There's a lot of money in that fight. You know, I've thought to myself, that's probably the neighborhood of, in terms of American money, you know, probably talking about a $225 million, maybe a $250 million kind of fight with all the revenue that's associated with it. So, you know, he'd be looking for a very hefty step aside. You know, would Fury and or Joshua want to pay a piece of that? You know, it doesn't seem like it. But if you're Fury, you kind of got to think to yourself, you know, is it better if he's going to make, say, around $100 million for the fight, ballpark? I mean, it could be even more than that. Is it worth it to have the fight and maybe give up, say, 10 million, whatever the number is, and get the fight, or make, I don't know what the number would be, 20 million to fight the rematch against Wilder? And still there's always a chance with that big punching power. And, you know, he's not like he forgot how to be a heavyweight boxer. that he could certainly win the fight. And then you put everything at risk. Now, it is prize fighting, and every time you step in the ring, you're taking a gamble. But again, that's all doesn't make a difference. If Wilder is steadfast that he's not taking $1 to step aside, whether it's $1 or 10 million, they're going to have to do the fight.
And a possibility that Tyson might have to vacate his WBC in order to get this fight on with Joshua.
Well, that I'm not sure about that. I mean, Tyson Fury I don't think the WBC is going to intervene and say that he has a mandatory due. I mean, they handled that back when I know it's been a while, but the WBC is pretty much, they're standing down, I think, at this point, unless I missed something. So I don't think the WBC is a problem at this moment.
No, I'm saying Deontay might, if it's not money, obviously there'll be some money involved, but if they can do a deal perhaps where Deontay fights for a vacant WBC, but you're right, probably the WBC would probably have to get involved.
I mean, anything can happen. I don't see of all the different issues and problems in this particular situation, I don't see the WBC being a problem. The IBF is not a problem. That's up to date. The WBA, they do what they want to do. They got 14 champions, whatever, and there's no issue there. They're going to be happy to go along and have this fight. And in terms of the WBO, that's the one that's been the sticking point. They had cleared the path for this to be for the WBO title also by ordering and Usyk agreeing to take an interim the interim title fight against Joe Joyce. But now that the Wilder camp has won the arbitration, the Usyk camp is going to press the issue. And Eddie Hearn, to his credit, when he came out and did a video for Matchroom Boxing's YouTube channel, and he spoke about all the particulars, and I wrote about that today. He spoke about the fact that, look, we hope the Top Rank works everything out and gets a deal done, but we have to be prepared in the event that they don't. We were assured that this was no problem. Well, obviously it is a problem. And to that point, he said he's been in touch with Alexander Krasiuk, the promoter of Alexander Usyk, to say, listen, we know what's going on. Let's try to make a sensible deal. And if the fight doesn't happen, we think you're up next in August. So I guess at this moment, and everything can change in a heartbeat. It's a very fluid situation, like everything in boxing a lot of times. It would seem that Wilder will wind up fighting a third fight against Tyson Fury. Anthony Joshua will fight some other date this summer against Usyk in the mandatory. And if both guys come out on the winning side, you hope that they can take the deal that they've spent so long trying to put together, that Fury finally has said on Sunday that he was happy was done, and just kind of put that to the side and just change the date in the contract and bring it back for, when they're ready to go next, hopefully sometime like, I would imagine November, December.
I think that's a good summary on.
It's just really, it's hard being a boxing fan right now. Really is.
Well, yeah, I think that was a good summary from yourself, Dan. So just before we close off, can't forget there is a huge fight this weekend in Las Vegas, undisputed fight, which is very, very rare for our sport. Just give me a couple of minutes on your take on Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor, Dan.
Well, first of all, it's a fantastic fight. I mean, when they made it, I said that, if you're looking at the boxing calendar of everything that we know of at the moment for the spring and the summer, it's the best fight on the calendar, bar none. And that's not a knock on any other fight out there. But when you have, two guys who are in their prime, who both hold 2 titles apiece, who are both outstanding fighters, who are both 1 and 2 in the weight class, in whichever order you elect to put them, or 1A, 1B, whatever you want to label them, both with deep amateur pedigree as Olympic fighters, both who didn't try to avoid this fight, who ran towards this fight, who wanted this fight, guys who faced good competition coming into this fight. Josh, of course, is well tested in his run in the World Boxing Super Series, and as well as fights he had even before that. You can take a look at the opponents that Jose Ramirez has faced. He wasn't in the tournament, but he has faced very quality opposition as well, whether it's Postol, who they both have victories against, or it's Jose Zepeda or Amir Imam. They both fought a good caliber of opponent. And so you match them up together and you look at the strengths that they both have, and it's hard to pick a winner in the fight. I mean, it's such a good matchup. They're both good defensively, relatively speaking. They're both obviously good offensively. They both have, neither one of them is like a speed burner, but they both have decent speed. They both are technically sound. It's just a really high level fight, and I expect it to be competitive. I think Jose probably has the edge when it comes to punching power. He's got a devastating left hook. He's a very good puncher. I think he takes not to say that Josh doesn't take a good shot, but I think Jose takes a very good shot. But you know, Josh has been in the United States for a month getting ready for this fight. When he made the deal with you know, with his promoter Top Rank to do this match, one of the stipulations was that he wanted to make sure that he was here, you know, a good month ahead of time. So he's been, you know, in Vegas already. So there's not going to be any issues as far as, you know, I couldn't adjust to the time change or to the weather. He's been there for weeks already doing his thing. So, I mean, everything is, you know, ready to go for, I think, just what could be a classic fight. And as you said, Umar, you know, having an undisputed fight, we saw the difficulties to make the heavyweight fight. Even when they were there and they thought it was done, it's hanging by a thread. You know, this is a rare thing. It's not very common, and I applaud both guys. They're both good guys and top-notch fighters. And you know, I'm super excited to watch it. The only negative about it, if there is, and it's not in any remotely the fault of either boxer, is that because of the pandemic, they're still only going to have about 1,000 fans, if that, in the theater at the what is now called the Virgin Hotels. It's the refurbished old Hard Rock, which is a very nice theater. I've covered fights there in the past. But of course, if this fight was in a Mandalay Bay or an MGM or a Staples Center or, you know, say in the O2 Arena or something like that, you'd have a huge crowd, you know, 15, 20,000 type of crowd for this kind of event. So if there's one negative, it's that there's going to be a very limited crowd. But at least we're going to see what I hope and I expect to be a really tremendous fight.
Yeah, you're right. If we were living in normal times, you'd be seeing a lot of Scottish flags in Las Vegas this week.
And probably a lot of those folks making the trip. But it's so hard now with the travel restrictions for the average fan, as well as for, I know some of the reporters that would come over from the UK would have liked to come. It's been difficult to come for fights, not just for that fight, but you know, I was at the Billy Joe Saunders fight against Canelo, and that was a fight where normally with a fight of that magnitude for the British public, there would have been a lot of, you know, at least a half a dozen or more of the UK media members. But for that particular fight, because of the fact of the travel issues, that makes it a problem to come here with a visa, unless you've already come in the past or whatever. There was only like one or two British press that was even there, which was, you know, disappointing. They missed a great event, unfortunately.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, you probably would have been one of them, right? You would have come over, right?
Yeah, I was due to come over, and but we've got Andrew there, McCart, who's doing the whole month out there because he's already entered the country, as you said. So hopefully these restrictions drop this summer because it's about time we start getting over to the States. But Dan, appreciate your time on IFL TV as always, and we'll talk soon, all right?
I look forward to it. Thanks. And hope we get a great fight Saturday, and we'll see what happens with the heavyweights.